Greetings and much love, peace, and fun to us all. Thank you for listening. My name is Kimberly. I was asked to do an update with Neil Keenan, and that's what I'm going to do. Also being joined by Jean Haines, and I want to tell you about Jean Haines' blog, which is What's the Real Truth? You can just Google Jean Haines, What's the Truth, and you'll find it, or Jean Haines blog, but it is JHAINES6.wordpress.com. I'm expecting that most people who are listening to this are already aware of what Neil Keenan has been doing for the last several years. And for those who haven't, I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs that were written by Michael Henry Dunn that are posted on Jean's blog. And the title of the article is Neil Keenan Update, A Brief History of the Global Collateral Accounts. And like I said, I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs. The history behind the global collateral accounts is vast and complex and reaches back some 250 years. For the purpose of this brief overview, the focus will be on two key elements which are now headlining stories around the world: debt and gold. The Western banking oligarchy's current global control can be traced back to the Rothschild family's dominance of international banking in the early years of the 19th century. The long-term strategy of the elite banking and royal bloodline families was simple: gain control of the global gold supply in order to maintain power through the control of global currency and its underlying collateral. Gold and debt. That is the essence of this story. Who is Neil Keenan and what is his relationship to the global accounts? The emergence of Neil Keenan at the cutting edge of these events can be traced to the theft in 2009 by Vatican financial insider Daniel Dal Bosco of $144.5 billion in Federal Reserve notes, which were entrusted to Mr. Keenan by the Dragon family, the group of ancient wealthy clans in Asia who are the legitimate owners of vast amounts of gold in the off-ledger global accounts. The Dragon family has been attempting for decades to utilize the accounts for their originally intended purpose, and sought out Keenan's help because of his reputation as a well-connected, tough-minded international businessman. The story of this theft and of Mr. Keenan's filing of a $1 trillion lawsuit against elite figures and institutions, including the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, the Italian government, and the Italian financial police, among others. It was first revealed by Benjamin Fulford, who is a former Forbes magazine financial editor for Asia, who traveled to Italy to conduct initial investigations, where an attempt was made on his life. The story was then taken up by best-selling author David Wilcock, confirming the story in an investigative article on his influential blog at divinecosmos.com. The 110-page lawsuit was filed in New York Federal Court November 23, 2011. In addition to his lawsuit, which he subsequently withdrew in order to refile in a more effective jurisdiction, Keenan also filed a cease and desist order on behalf of the Dragon family against a who's who of the cabal power structure, putting them on notice that they were defrauding the global accounts and would be prosecuted for any further fraud. The bonds which were stolen from Mr. Keenan were Federal Reserve notes given to the Dragon family in payment for the gold deposited in the accounts, notes which the Federal Reserve continually blocked from utilization. Mr. Keenan's lawsuit represents the first formidable attempt to defeat this theft. This interview was recorded on Friday, June 21st, 2013, at around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, Neil, it's nice to actually finally get a chance to talk to you. How are you? And nice to meet you.
My pleasure, Kimberly. It's 3 years. It's 3 years away. 3 years ago that this all started with you.
Well, no, it started with you. I just wanted to prove that it was true.
It's true. It's true. You started. You made the first call. You made the first call to my lawyer.
That's right.
He said, who's she? And then it all started.
So anyway, well, congratulations. And also here standing by and listening and who facilitated making this happen is Jean Haines. How are you, Jean?
I'm doing just fine, very excited and happy to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Neil, just really briefly, for somebody who's never heard anything about this, can you give us the 2-minute version of what's gone on in the last 3 years, and then we'll do an update, because a lot of people may hear this that don't know what's going on, and if they want to know what's going on, they can go to various places and catch themselves up.
Various updates of the last 3 years, Kimberly.
Yeah.
The update in 2 minutes. Well, we filed the action, as you know. We procured numerous documents that could hurt the big boys, we could call them, I guess. And we ended up withdrawing the complaint for jurisdictional reasons. We didn't think we had enough documentation or support for jurisdiction, and that they would dismiss the case. So rather than have it dismissed, we withdrew it so that we could refile, and we're in the process of doing that now. That's the reason why we withdrew the case. In the meanwhile, so many other things have happened in regards to the global accounts and everything else. I mean, it's been absolutely insane. You're talking about Nelu going to jail after reaching all kinds of agreements with the elders and getting ceremony, amongst other things, and myself as well. Well, now we're trying to get him out. From jail to out of jail, and it's always been a setup. It's been a setup from day one. Just like the theft of the bonds, we're talking now about the global accounts, and we're again involved in a setup. It doesn't stop. The global accounts and anything to do with those notes mostly is very difficult to deal with, period. It's difficult. The feds and everyone else just keep their hands in it, and they don't allow anyone else to use them, including the depositors and the owners.
And for those who've not heard any of this before, who is Nelu?
Martha Wabawa. He's a young man who is doing the runnings in the hills for me, and getting to the elders and working with his with the notes and with the assets, bringing them down. He's just a very trustworthy young man, and he's now sitting in a jail. He was the guy that worked with me. All
right. So let's get into the update. What's been changing over the last few days that has been helpful?
Well, you know we had that setback with the court system. They wouldn't allow me to get into Nelu's files to get to the documentation we needed in order to assist him with his appeal. You do know that. I'm sure most people do who have been following it. And yesterday we decided we weren't going to sit still any longer. We had to go knock down some doors, and we did. And what we learned was that Nelu never had an attorney. They played him like a fool. They promised him all kinds of things, and in the end they pulled the rug out from underneath him and gave him 3.5 years, which they consider a good deal. By also not having an attorney, they violated the Indonesian law, the Indonesian penal codes, and so on. And we're looking at now going back into the court and using their own codes against them, because Nelu never had an attorney. Any crime in Indonesia, which has a possible sentence of 5 years or more, you have to have a lawyer with you at every step of the process. Nelu never had one. Not at any point, not at any time. I think you know about the summons being suppressed. That goes to the prosecutor's office. The sentencing itself, or Nelu's defense, presenting his defense, he never had a defense to present because they never called me. They went right directly into a sentencing in this case. So now we've been talking to lawyers, and we're not sitting in a bad position. We need a real good lawyer, and I think we might have access to one. And if so, then he'll go back in. This guy's a battler. He's a fighter, and he will literally just tear them apart, from what I understand. It'll be a new hearing for Nelu, and he'll probably get out, from what I understand, during this new hearing. I can't imagine the lower court allowing this to continue because it makes them look foolish. I can't imagine them allowing us to file an international, criminal complaint against them or the prosecutor. This is just a very simple matter of letting the man go. He doesn't belong there.
Neil, is it possible that the judges and the prosecutor and interrogator in the case overlooked the fact that Nelu was not represented?
Did they overlook it?
Mm-hmm.
I think they deliberately overlooked it. I think they deliberately overlooked it. I think they knew every little thing that was going on, every little nuance going on. They had their hands in it, and this whole thing was set up from the beginning to turn out this way. No, I think that the judges, I think that the prosecutor, I think that every one of them, every damned one of them, Kimberly, knew what was going on, and they knew what they were going to give Nelu from day one. They knew what they were doing. I don't think that they overlooked it. How can you overlook it when it's your own codes? You practice every day of the week being a judge, doing your work and doing your job, and every day of the week you're a prosecutor. You know that they need a lawyer present, especially if they're facing possibly a term of more than 5 years. That's the law here. How can they overlook it?
So what do you think is playing behind the scenes that's preventing Nelu from getting out and from you going forward?
In the beginning I thought they were just doing their job, and I thought they were pretty honorable. I had met them. They were humble. They were basically nice people. And but I think now that they think they did Nelu a favor by giving him 3.5 years, as I said, and I think that they protected their system as well. I don't believe that they could let Nelu go. I believe some other influences were involved in this matter. Otherwise, I believe that Nelu would have won, and he would have had an attorney, and the summonses wouldn't have been suppressed, and he would have had a defense presentation, and he would have had a proper sentencing. He didn't have any of that. He didn't have a case, and he had a big case, but he didn't have a case. They didn't give him the opportunity.
What's your next step?
Next step is speaking on Monday, I believe, to this lawyer that I mentioned, that I believe will go in and battle. First, I have to discuss things with him and see if we can bring him in, if he wants to come in. But he's a fighter. I believe he will. His resume and his reading about him, he's similar to us in many ways. He doesn't quit. He's a fighter, and this is something that he likes. So if we rope him in and we can bring him in, then the next step would be for him to go into the courts with Nelu's case. And I understand the case is still in the hands of the lower court because it's been sent back to them from the higher court, and they can resentence him. They can give him a lesser sentence or even throw the charges out, which is what we're hoping, is that they dismiss everything. I mean, Nelu wants out. He's been there 11 months, I believe now, and it's a little too long for something he didn't do. He's sitting in a place with a father-in-law that did this to him, and he's not happy with that either right now. In the beginning, he didn't mind, thinking his father-in-law was caught in the same trap as him. But when he found out that his father-in-law was telling everybody what they were doing with phone calls, and that's why they ended up in this mess, then it turns out to be a little different for Nelu.
Kimberly?
Yes.
Could I interfere just a minute?
Yep.
I think there's a couple things that people probably could be helped to understand. One is that Nelu is an educated man, and Neil mentioned that he can get around the bush and so on, and he has the trust of the Indonesian people. But Nelu is an educated man, and he was, I believe, and Neil, correct me in this, that he turned down a job as a manager of a respected bank there in Jakarta. Is that correct, Neil?
It's true.
Yeah, that's one fact. And Neil, I don't know whether this can be mentioned or not, but I think is that for people who don't really understand, we know that Keith Scott was behind this with Nelu's father-in-law, and Nelu was set up. And I don't know that the father knew the extent of the setup. The father-in-law.
Well, the father-in-law did not know. He thought that they were being honest with him.
So Nelu never really had a shot from the get-go with this setup, and we think that there is much more behind it than was ever stated publicly. It sounded like there was some petty criminal stuff going on. I don't think so. I think they knew from the get-go exactly what they were doing, and were taking him out. And he is a totally innocent man and has been in prison for 11 months, having done nothing. Neil tried his best to work with the system, but the system doesn't work. It works for apparently for whoever pays the biggest price. I just have to put that in there.
Well, Jeannie, we can tell Kimberly basically that Keith Scott and then this Dewey and her husband, and And Tina made the phone calls to the authorities and told them Naylu was sitting in a car, in the hospital parking lot. I mean, why would they do that? I mean, other than they've already set the guy up, him and the father-in-law. And the father-in-law is the one that told them where he was.
I realize, Kimberly, that you're coming in on this story a little bit late, but it's like a grand soap opera, the likes of which you cannot begin to imagine. For people coming in and listening now, it blows you away when you can't believe that a legal system works this way. But it seems to me they have a little fiefdom over there. And
but Jeannie, it's the legal system, but it was also Scott, and it was also Wagner, and it was also all these people. It just was one bad thing after another, led all the way through to today. Nothing good has happened to that poor guy, other than us.
And Neil, people have asked, why did Neil not walk away from Naylu? It's not a simple answer. And Neil, maybe you'd share some of the things you shared right before we went on here.
Well, yes. Well, first of all, if I'm going to continue with the global accounts, I need Naylu. Secondly, Naylu's my friend. And I don't walk away from my friends, especially when they're in trouble. He didn't do anything to hurt himself. People did it to hurt him. Without Naylu, there's no one that can go into those hills. First of all, everybody thinks I can just find somebody else that can go in there and do the job. Naylu had ceremony. Okay, ceremony, the elders accept him. Naylu can go in there and he can work with them. Nobody else would even get near the elders. And if they did, they wouldn't be accepted. There's so many different things. And then they say, why Neil? Why is Neil there? Well, I'm fighting the bad guys in this matter. And the bad guys are afraid of me, which makes it an easier path for me, even though I've had ceremony too. And I've got the Black Book. And the Black Book, once you open it and you get into the black screens, you find out who has illegally been using the funds or been using the funds in the global accounts. We're talking trillions and trillions of dollars. It's there now. If we took the funds and we used them today, or we had them authenticated today, all the countries that have printed all that cash would be in deep trouble. They're in trouble now because most of that cash, or half of it even, would be fake money. And they're trying to con everybody into believing that it's real. In the meantime, if you get stopped with it, you can go to jail. So you need audits. You need this. You need that. Getting back to Naylu, there's nobody that can take his place. Who could take his place? I'd find another Keith Scott with my luck. I'd rather fight to get my friend out of jail where he doesn't belong. And in the meanwhile, stop preparing everything so that when he's out, it makes it a lot easier for us all.
A lot of people were asking this question, and I think this is a good place for me to ask this question in regards to Naylu. What if something were to happen to Naylu?
So if something were to happen to Naylu?
Mm-hmm. What's plan B?
Well, then I would have no choice but to go back to what I thought initially, and that would be that I would have to go into the hills, and I'd have to find someone that I could trust somewhere, because I can't do it all. I have other things I'm doing too. I would have to handle that. Okay, because a lot of people were asking that question. But nothing's going to happen to Naylu. Naylu's well protected. He's got so much protection. It's incredible.
Neil, when you speak of that protection, let me say about what I know about indigenous people. I think I can speak generally then and apply it to the elders. They have, when ceremony is done, it's the only other person I know who has had ceremony done is Dungala Melchizedek. They look for people. They wanted someone to speak to the Western world, the Maya did, for them. And it can last several days. And the people are, they get into connection with Mother Earth. What I think is probably the quantum field, to Source, to Creator. And it's a very spiritually oriented thing, not the way our religion works. And I use religion in quotes, Western religion. And they look for a sign. And if a sign doesn't come, or it's a bad sign, you're not accepted. So it's out of their hands. I don't know what happened back in the bush when they did this, or the hills.
Well, mine wasn't in the bush. Mine was in a hotel room.
Remember when Naylu went back in there and then he came out?
Well, Yeah, Naylor went to a flower bath.
And then he was flown out, and then he went back in, and that's when he brought the down as the symbol to you.
Well, he went into a flower bath, is what they called it, and then they had the sign, and Naylor was allowed in at that point. Only after they received the sign.
But then he came out, and there were several days, and then he went back in. And I think during that several days, Neil, is when the ceremony for you took place. And let me say this, it will be a sign from nature, and it will be a positive sign or a negative sign. And they have been watching Neil for 30 years. They've been waiting for him, and they've been watching him specifically. And Neil told me they knew things, Jean, that nobody knows about
me. But the strangest thing of all is that they told me they knew me for 30 years. They've known me for 30 years, Kimberly. And, here I am sitting there saying, geez, I haven't known myself for 30 years. Saying, what happened here? They know me better than I know me. But it was quite an adventure. It was quite an adventure.
Yeah, this is a very complex process with a group of people who do not think like the Western world thinks. And it's probably a more wholesome way of thinking. They reach consensus. It's a beautiful thing. And Nelu has their support. And I can tell you that Nelu and Neil are being protected. Spiritually, they are being protected. We're in the time of it. The vibrations on the planet are rising. This is all very, very important in the total picture because it's a scientific thing as well. Science and spirituality meet in the quantum field, and they are not in disagreement. So I think that Nelu is extremely important, and the people who are stopping this know exactly what they're doing, and they know importance. And they know how vital it is that he comes out. That's why we put the information out on my blog. We've gotten some tremendous support from people, some tremendous ideas. And there's no doubt in either Neil's mind or my mind that this is going to happen, that Nelu's coming out. And quite honestly, Indonesian law needs to work through some stuff they've got going on there and get up to date. But anyway, I just felt like I needed to say a few of those things. I hope you don't mind me jumping in.
Not at all. That's what we asked you to do. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Kimberly, your turn again.
Okay, as far as the elders are concerned, it appears to me that the elders aren't helping. What's up with that? Why can't they be of help?
The elders stay away from the government. They don't work together. And the military and the elders work somewhat together in regards to the assets, but the government and the judiciary and the elders, they just stay apart. They just don't come forward. You don't see them in the city. When they come, they move quietly, and you don't hear about them. It's like the Dragon family or any other family, secret society. You don't even know they exist. That's how they've been able to live here for so long, and people in the cities didn't even know their assets were here. They don't talk about things. They don't get involved in things. They're just they were very happy that I came along and made noise. They're the same with the Dragon family. They were just happy that I raised hell, Kim, and they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. It's something that they don't do. They're very humble people.
Have you talked to them? I mean, they must know people. Maybe they don't talk to them. Have you talked to them and asked them that?
Ask them why they don't help Nelu?
If they have some suggestions of what might be helpful. Have you asked them that?
No, because this really isn't their okay. realm. We're talking about stepping out from what they do into something that we do, and it's a big difference. Okay. It's big. This is up to us to deal with what we have in our hands, and there's nothing they can do but hope that it works out well. They pray and they give energy and they do all the things they claim they're going to do. I mean, they can even heal you, from what I understand, Kim. They have healed some people that I know long distance. Problems with their internal organs in their body even. I mean, it's quite the thing to find out after being told that modern medicine is everything for so many years. Okay. It's amazing.
Neil, at this point, Tell us about what the plans are in regard to international action.
We're definitely going to draw it up. We're going to draw it up, and I'm going to get them each and every one of them a copy so they can see what they're facing. And, if we continue to move forward with this NALU thing in the manner that we have been, then I am going to file it, and I'm going to show them that this is what happens. You lose your life, you lose your livelihood, your career, you lose your home. I mean, I don't know how they bought their $1 million homes on $500 a month, but all this stuff will be investigated, and they're going to be involved with all kinds of anti-corruption things, and they're going to be in trouble. They might be NALU's roommate if they're not careful.
So do you have a lawyer ready to help prepare for an international action?
There's one special lawyer by the name of Matthew Green. He's also the head of the Knights Templar in Europe. And he's the one that chased the oligarchs out of Russia, the Russian mafia. He did it legally. And he is right now looking over what I've sent to him. And I'll have things pretty much, I'll have all the actions in place in a couple of days. And at that point in time, I'll throw the names, I'll attach the names to the actions, the judges, the prosecutor, and everyone else. And at that point, they can see what they're facing. I'll let them see what they're facing before I file. It's not going to be an easy road for them. If we have to fight, then we will fight and we'll win. It's simple.
So when did you decide on this?
A long time ago. It didn't happen just recently. A long time ago. I've had things in the planning stages for a long, long time in regards to international lawsuits. Always 10 to 12 steps ahead, so that whatever move they made, I could counter it, and I would have a better, I would be steps ahead of them. They would have to come right back and do something again. They're not the most clever people, but they're not dummies either. But they do not think ahead. Not many people do.
So Neil, how much more time do you think it's going to take to get to the end of all this?
If things work out as I'm hoping, the lower court can actually reduce NALU's sentence or even throw the case out. If they do this, then that's great. That will happen within the next 14 days, okay? And they can reduce his sentence within the next 14 days. And I would think with the international court looming over their heads and going after their livelihoods, their professions, their careers, and everything else, I would think that they'd have to consider that too. I mean, there's been a lot of corruption here. I mean, I have to call it corruption because the guy never had a lawyer, and they have to be aware of all this. They've suppressed summonses to his only witness, me. They didn't allow him to have a defense hearing. I mean, so that he could bring up witnesses and question the people that they're accusing him. He never had that opportunity. They just went right to a sentencing. So I mean, when you start talking to international court, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. It's quite the story. I'm only telling you little bits because it'll take forever to tell you the whole story. But the guy doesn't belong in there. He belongs out. And I think by applying the pressure that they've been applying pressure long enough, don't you think? It's his turn to apply a little bit of pressure too.
Well, how would the international court have any influence over the corrupt judge in Indonesia if their own laws are of no consequence? Well,
they wouldn't have control of the judge's sentencing. I mean, if the judge gave Neil that 3.5 years, he'd probably have to finish it. But if we filed, then the judges and everyone else would be facing criminal charges as well, in an international court. Now, I can't imagine anybody being in a position where they say this man has 4 or 5 more months to go, and and then it's going to be our turn, and we're going to end up going through hell. We don't want to go through hell. I think there's going to be some kind of deal struck. I think there should be.
Can the international court enforce any decisions in Indonesia?
No, they can't. They can't do anything in regards to Indonesia, but they can do it in The Hague, for example, and they will. They can bring them in. They can bring them in. They can fly them in, and they'll be facing those charges because there's enough corruption here in this case to really, really stir up the pot. I'd like to know who paid these people, if anybody paid them at all. I'd like to know why they're acting as they're acting. I think that's how you find out too.
So if this continues to drag out, what are the penalties going to be for dragging it out?
Well, we'll file the international complaint. We will file, and they will have to worry about themselves all of a sudden for the first time. The prosecutor should probably be suspended pending the hearings in the Hague, as well as the others, the judges and everyone else. It's going to be a mess for them. They made their own mess. Now like the upper court said, the lower court made a mess. Let them clean it up. Now they're going to have a bigger mess that they're going to have to clean up, and they can't clean this one up because the Hague's not going to bite for the same stuff that they did over here. Now it's going to be their turn. Think about it. They're going to lose immediately. They lose their licenses to practice, from what I understand over here. And they're eventually going to lose their law licenses, and the judges are no longer going to be judges, and they're going to be facing all these heavy charges outside the country. They're no longer protected by the immunities of the country.
Mm-hmm.
They're in trouble. They're in trouble. They're not going to want this. They don't want it. And you know something? I would prefer that no one goes that far, and that this thing finishes. It just gets over with, so everybody can move along and do what they have to do, and we can get together and work on those global accounts. I mean, and once we start working on the global accounts, it's going to be great for Indonesia. It's going to be great for the world. The bunkers are filled with those notes and with assets like gold and jewels. There's numerous things, bank guarantees and all kinds of things that have value, big value. I'm not talking, there's no shortage of value in the world. It's over here alone, we're talking about 90,000 of those Federal Reserve note boxes. Each box is worth about $3 trillion. This all comes from the United States. They printed them. You wonder why we're in a hole? We kept printing and printing and printing and printing. And that's what we did. It's all here. A lot of it's here. And a lot of it's also in other countries as well. You have to remember, the M1 was President Sukarno, the financial controller of the world at one time. He was the first one. He's the only M1 ever. They talk about an M1 today, but that's not an appointed, that's not an elected M1. That's an appointed M1 by the West.
Mm.
In other words, so they can continue to steal. And they're not even allowed to steal that much any longer anyway. Like they could walk in the banks before and take money out. They can't do that anymore. Those days are done. They're on their last legs, Kimberly, these people. I mean, I understand in the United States we have all kinds of trouble, but so do we here and the rest of the world too. Look at Spain and Greece. In Greece, you've got a Goldman Sachs boy becoming their prime minister. In Spain, you've got in Italy, you've got a Goldman Sachs boy becoming their prime minister. They're trying to do the same thing in Greece. The Irish are paying 42% of the European debt. What happened to Germany and all those countries that have money? Why aren't they paying the debt?
Hmm.
They're all playing. They're all the chefs over there. The bosses, and you got a European Union that's their euro is, and their whole organization is just being held up by toothpicks. I mean, all the notes that they send into the collateral accounts, into the global accounts here, most of them are fake. And I'm going to get those notes, and I'm going to go see Draghi, or I'm going to send them something to Draghi. Here's $1 trillion. We want them redeemed right now. And if he can't redeem them, then we're going to come after them legally and throw them into bankruptcy because we have tons of them. You know, we're going to do that. That's one of the reasons why NALU is where NALU is, because we're going to do an audit on those accounts.
Right.
There, you got it out of me. You got it out of me. The European Union is going to collapse. Okay, it has to collapse. The Goldman Sachs boys I don't know where they're going to run to, but they better leave Greece and they better leave Italy. They better leave Spain, and of course, they better leave Ireland. Maybe they'll all run to England where they belong, or to Germany, or France, or Belgium. You know, because those are the boys that are putting this game together to destroy Europe and more or less create a one world over there for the New World Order. They're putting their dots in place right now so they can connect them. That's what's happening in Europe. In the United States, you've got the same program and same game, from the pharmaceutical companies all the way to educational, to the academics, to the schools. It's all tied into the New World Order. That's why our history is so screwed up, Kimberly.
I know.
You know, I mean, they created our history. Imagine that. That's a shame.
Right.
But it's what they've been doing for a long time, and we're waking up.
Thank goodness.
And the more we wake up, yeah, fine. Thank God, huh?
Right.
Thank God. It wasn't ever scary for me, but I have a lot of friends who found it very scary waking up, and now they see everything, and they just can't believe it. The false flags, and you know what's happened in Boston, and I mean that That was one of their games, and so was 9/11, and so was Connecticut and Texas, and it's just one thing after another, just trying to distract us. It's amazing. Anyway, let's get back to the other thing.
Okay. I was wondering what would happen if you actually did file in the international courts.
If I did file?
Yeah, what would happen?
Well, that would mean that, first of all, Nehlu's going to finish the sentence, which is a couple of months, which isn't that much. But there's no reason for him to finish anything, seeing he never did anything. Every note Nehlu had in his bag, that there was $1 million in notes, just a sample, that came down. Every one of the notes that Nehlu had in his possession turned out to be real. The embassies or the countries whose treasuries printed those notes, their embassies confirm those notes are real.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew they were real. Nothing could happen to Nehlu except for somebody like his father-in-law put some notes in his bag that didn't damn well belong there. And according to the Indonesian culture, Nehlu really should listen to his father-in-law, and his father-in-law should listen to the grandfather. It's a pecking order all the way to the top. So Nehlu did what he was supposed to do according to their custom. And when he brought that up to the judges, what he should have said to them is, look, do you want us all to neglect our heritage and how we've come so far with grandfathers and father-in-laws and so on, or do you want us all to go to jail? What do you want? Because the culture clashed with the court system. It's a damned if you do and a damned if you don't.
Neil?
Yes.
I think they used the culture.
They what?
I think in a sense it clashed. Well, maybe it wasn't used, but it was used against them, and it shouldn't have been.
It was used. It was used against them, but yet this is what they want here. They want to maintain this culture with the father-in-law on top of the son-in-law and the grandfather on top of this, and they want there's a pecking order. The son makes the money and he goes and gives it to the grandfather, to the father, and what's left he has. I mean, how can you have that pecking order any longer when you know that one of them may make a mistake and you might go to jail for it?
Yeah, but let me say this: we're going to get it done, Neil. There's no question in my mind. And Kimberly,
Gene, this is over. This is over with.
This is
over with. There's no question about it. What?
Who don't understand culture? Who don't understand indigenous elders?
Getting back to Kimberly's question, Kimberly, there's one thing that people are overlooking, and that is if we file an international complaint, it's very possible this entire judicial system just goes belly up. There's that possibility, too, because we'll be attacking the system, which is very flawed. I don't want to do that. I don't think Nehlu does either. We spoke about it yesterday or the day before yesterday, and we don't want this problem. We just want to be able to get back to work and get those notes out, get those accounts out, get them open so that people can live. Obama could open the accounts with a swipe of a pen. So could Queen Elizabeth, but they don't. They don't. They're keeping it all from you because it's not for you, it's all for them.
All right.
And that's what's been happening. It's been all for them. There's stories of Kissinger flying the gold out of Freeport and places around here from on the other side of the island, and they're taking it to Hong Kong, they're melting it, and then they're bringing it back to where they want it. It's theirs. They're stealing it. You wonder where it's going. They're stealing it. But that stopped here, too. We stopped that.
Yay.
Yeah, we stopped it about 3 or 4 months ago. And so we're lucky there. And by the way, they've also been asked to leave the island. Their people. So that's good. The president did that. And finally, somebody did something for the people.
You think they'll leave?
I understand most of them have left.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. The country is a good country. The people are great. It's time, though, to tidy it up and get rid of the bad. The bad's been here long enough. The evil's been here long enough. Like I said, they're not evil people. They're not bad people. You'd like them.
Oh, okay. I'll come visit.
You'd like them. Jeannie likes them. She knows some.
I'm wondering, Neil, if you do file the international complaint, how would the Indonesian media take to that?
I think they'd jump all over it. I think what the big story would be is how many of the judges, how many judges and how many prosecutors and politicians and so on will be spilling coffee in their laps in the morning when they open up when they see the front page. They'd be dropping their coffee in their lap, Kim, I'm telling you.
And if the international court does come into play, what would the penalties be if it went that far?
I don't know what the penalties would be. They'd have to pay NALU for compensatory damages and punitive. I was talking to the lower court the other day, and I told them it could be anywhere from 50 to 100 million on punitive. His face turned white. And, compensatory would be less. I have no idea what the damages would be, but it depends upon how it's filed. It could be treble damages even in a RICO form. You never know. You don't know until the jury comes back with the damages. It surely will be the most money NALU ever received for a year, not on vacation, but a year put away. It'd be a ton of money. I think he'd give up all that money just to get out tomorrow.
Yeah.
He doesn't belong there.
So, Neil, how do you see this all playing out?
Exactly as we discussed it.
Yeah.
Within the next 14 days, we're looking at certain things happening. If we get the lawyer that we're hoping to acquire, then he'll be walking into the courts and he'll be filing documentation in regards to NALU not having had an attorney from day one, how they played on that, how they've made false promises to him, how they've suppressed summonses, how it just keeps going, Kim. It just keeps going. And if that doesn't work, then I would think that we just tie them all into a nice package and we throw them into the international court and let them fend for themselves and see what it's like when people are coming at them, when their livelihoods are on the line, their freedom's on the line, and everything else is on the line. Just put the shoe on the other foot, and that's it.
Well, thank you on behalf of myself and I'm sure many people listening for all the work that you guys are doing.
Maybe Jean, Kim, 1 second.
Yeah.
Jean, do you have anything to say? Jean?
I don't know. Not at this point in time. It's all overwhelming, I'm sure, to people who are just coming on board. There's plenty of reading on my site because Neil has been using that as a means to communicate. Oh, here comes Ellie. The gardeners are here. That's Ellie. She hates blowers and weed whackers. She's in. I hope you can't hear her.
We can, but it's all right. We like dogs.
Sorry to interrupt with that. I would invite you to read. I would invite you to read the comments. I have a wonderful group of readers on my blog who add their comments, and many of them are rich and helpful. I couldn't do my blog without them, and I'm in full support of Neil and his work. I knew right away over a year ago that this guy was the key, and so I've been supporting him fully ever since then. And Kimberly, thank you so much for doing this for us. I know it's hard to come in, even though you've read up on the case, to just quote interview out of the blue, and I think you've done a terrific job for us, and I want to thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Kimberly.
Yes.
Jeannie, one question, Kim. Would you like, we have Inchel here and we have Joe here, who are also part of this. Would you like to just, rather than Neil Keenan just making comments, would you like a comment from them? Sure.
Before we do that, I'd like to know, is there anything that we can do to help? I mean, that collectively, those who are following, I know lots of people are sending you support mentally and telepathically, et cetera, but what can we do to help?
Well, our next step here is the lawyers. We need the lawyers. Yeah, Jeannie's made that pretty clear, I think, on her site. And this lawyer that we're going to see, maybe we can work something out with him where we don't need any funding. But then again, we never know. Then we need the lawyer, like Matthew is going to do and prepare the international case pro bono. Matthew is worth tons, but Matthew understands the value of getting this case completed. And as he did in Russia, and as he's done in other places, he also wants to help here and get this thing completed. All I can say is we need the lawyers. We need help. I mean, we can use all the help we can get. I mean, there's only a couple of us running around, but Gene's over there handling the fort, and and everybody is doing their job. But, we always could use more help. Am I right, Jean?
Yes. But, right.
I'm tired.
People has asked if they can donate. I think now is not the time for that. And I'd like to say that we certainly appreciate that caring. What I've really appreciated, I know Neil has, is some of the input that, the ideas that people have come up with as far as finding the lawyer. And we only have, when it reaches the lower court, we have 2 weeks to do this. So
it's already in the lower court. Jeannie, it's in the lower court now.
Okay, so we have 2 weeks. I guess the clock is ticking.
No, Nailu got his papers today, this afternoon, I believe, and that means the 14 days starts now, 14 work days.
Yes, okay. So if anybody hears this and knows
the
lawyer, etc., but we've got some good leads, Neil, and a lot of it comes from my site. We followed them all up, every single one of them. And what happened was someone would suggest someone else and somebody else, and then maybe it clicked an idea in Neil's head or my head. So this is the idea of the new consciousness that we're going into, that it's not an exclusive thing. We're only the la-di-da people that get to participate. We need everybody's ideas, and we don't know where the answer's coming from. So we don't feel exclusive. We feel like we need you all, and all your support in any way you can give us, we appreciate, believe me. Kimberly, we appreciate your giving us this time to do this. It's
I do appreciate
terrific.
it.
My pleasure.
Okay. Yeah,
I appreciate it as well.
Inchel and
Joe. Inchel is known as the Irish Korean and the Dancing Bear. You might have seen him dancing on the YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, let me say this. That Dancing Bear video, Inchel, is back around St. Patty's Day, I think.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Inchel. How are you?
Hello, Kimberly. This is Inchel. How are you?
I'm very well.
Yeah. First of all, apologize my poor English. I'm not sure I can answer correctly because of my poor English. Sorry about that.
You do fine.
Okay.
So what's your role in all of this?
In here, my role is assist Mr. Keenan, because at the moment only we, Mr. Keenan and I, and recently joined here. So at the moment, Mr. Keenan is doing lots of work because internationally and domestically met many people and conversations. So I help him to do to assist he can not do some small things. That's my role in here. or knocking the door in higher court or lower court and arrange the meeting with some people in here. Arrange the meeting with the governor or something like that.
And so my understanding is that you're a master of finding an interesting connection just by going in and talking to people.
Actually, I've been in Australia and New Zealand for nearly 10 years time, and I studied in there. And my job was a pilot, commercial pilot in there. I taught to students how to fly, and I have very good directions. And Neil has some problem to find the address or find the place. So I am very good at to find the exact place. It is very helpful for Neil, I think.
Oh, I think you've been great help. He tells me many times. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Inchel.
Yeah. I'll change this headset to Joe. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Kimberly. This is Joe.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How about yourself?
Well, thank you, and nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I've been helping Neil on translating documents, translating meeting with Indonesian officials. I've also been helping him on recording video clips on his updates and other things as well. Okay, if you want to ask me some questions, I try to answer them.
Just what's your take on how this is all playing out from where you sit?
Well, I think Neil has stated it clearly. We are going to get in touch with one of the best lawyers, one of the best Indonesian lawyers, and in my opinion, if we can get him personally on this case, it's not a question that we're going to win it in no time. He's just too good for this. In my opinion, he's still the best.
All right, Joe, thank you. Neil, you there?
Yeah, I just came back, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, would you be more specific on the lawyer? I mean, you talked about wanting a lawyer, needing a lawyer, but you weren't very specific. So would you be more specific before we wrap this up?
I don't think we want to put his name out there, Kim, because...
No. The lawyer that you're looking for, you still haven't found one. I wanted the specifics on what you're looking for.
First of all, we think that we have a winning case, not a winning, but a landslide case, and we think we've been hoodwinked from the beginning, and actually Martha has, Nelu, and we need someone that can go back into this court, and we've been told by various members of the lower court that if we get a good attorney, quality attorney, that it's very possible that this case could change. And we only have 14 days, 13 after today. And we need an aggressive attorney. I don't know how aggressive it has to be with all the information that we have, but we need somebody to go in there and basically just turn this thing upside down.
And what language do they need to speak?
Bahasa, well, Indonesian, Bahasa.
And you do have a lead, but you're still not there yet.
We actually got the information that we have about the lack of a lawyer being present from one of the attorneys that we went to see yesterday.
Okay. Not
only did we have what we had, but we came out with that, which is the most important piece of the whole puzzle. He never had an attorney.
All right.
And according to Indonesian law, that can't be. So what are they going to do? We need an attorney, though. They will not let me represent them. I've been doing the representing mostly for the past, 5 months, 6 months, and I've been able to get my hands on things. I've been able to stir up the pot quite a bit, and they don't like that because it exposes them. In accordance with their law, again, though, I'm not allowed to go into the files, into Nelu's files, and look at anything. Besides that, Kim, I wouldn't be able to understand that anyway. It's in Indonesian.
Right.
I mean, I'd be lost. I have enough documentation here in Indonesian that Joe over here does a great job, translating. I don't know. I just think that the guy would have to deal with what he's got, which is a lot, and get them to make the move so that we can just bury this hatchet and no one gets hurt any further. It's gone far enough.
Okay. Well, we're all rooting for you, that's for sure.
It's been a one-way street for a long time. Now it's becoming a two-way street. It's going to get shaky. Might not be room for two cars on that street, Believe me, it'll be our car that comes out on the other end, though.
We're counting on it.
At me when don't count on it. It's a fact of life. Angel looked at me when I said that, though. But no, there's no question that we win this battle. It's not any at all. Whether we win it now or a little later or in the international court actually start taking their licenses or practicing from them and checking and investigate their background and so on and how they got this and how they got... I mean, there's numerous things that can be done to hurt people. Let's not do it. Let's just get it over with. That's how I see it.
Right.
And I hope we have an attorney that sees it the same way unless they're defiant. If they're defiant, then we have to do what we have to do.
Well, like I said, we're all rooting for you, and thank you. And is there anything else you want to say in closing?
Yeah, I think, if we're going to talk about people, and Nate, Angel was here, and Joe was here, you got to talk about Michael Dunn, the great job he did when he was here, and, Frankie was here, and even Tika Todorov was here. All these people did a lot to help and get things to the point where we're at now. I mean, the other day we thought that we were dead, that I couldn't get my hands on anything, and look what happened. The next day, because we keep plugging, we find out that the lawyer was never present, and that we've got a major case here. We can turn this whole thing upside down and possibly get the case thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you don't quit. You just keep digging.
Yeah, life is like that.
It really is. It's, you fall down, you get up. You fall down, you get up. Knock them down, they might not get up. Not the same kind of character,
Right.
So, we don't know what we've got, but we do know that the young man's almost out already. He should be out at any given time. He's worried. He worries. He should worry. He's 11 months.
Yeah.
He's got a year. What's his son? 14, 15 months old.
Oh.
So it hurts him, and it should never have happened. But the father-in-law, once again, Keith Scott, and this guy Wagner, who tells everybody he's a member of the Rockefeller family, and there's Tina and Dewey, and they all partook in this and set this whole thing up so that they could move in and do the notes themselves, or steal the notes, which was really the plan. And that's what happened, Kim.
All right.
In the meantime, we've got people in jail.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thank you, Jean. I know you're back there somewhere.
You're welcome, Kimberly. Yeah, I am. I'm trying to mute it so you don't hear the blower and the dog.
Okay.
What do I have? What do I have to say, Kimberly? Come on, Bruins! Bruins!
Yeah.
Go Sox! Something to forget about right now. Anyway, Jeannie, you want to leave a last note, Jean? I'm done.
No, Neil, you can have the last word. You deserve it. You're the guy who's pushing this, and we're all standing with you.
Right.
And everybody on my blog. Kimberly, when we ask people to call into the courts about this problem before we really at that point had the picture of the depth of the corruption, 25,000 calls went in one day. We shut the court system down. They had to use their cell phones to do business.
Yeah, I knew about that. I love that.
That was fantastic. You know what, Jeannie? You know what they told Lynchell after that?
Tell me.
We don't want Neil Keenan in the court here anymore. We're afraid of him.
Well, they know what to do if they don't want Neil Keenan in the court anymore, because you're not going away till they do what's right.
I don't know how to go away.
The people of my blog have just been terrific, and supporting Neil they've been incredible, and everybody. We're all so appreciative, and appreciative of your time too, Kimberly, as well.
My pleasure. Doing my job.
Okay, we'll talk to you again then, I guess.
Okay.
And Neil, take care. Get some sleep.
Yep.
Take it easy.
Kimberly, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeannie, thanks.
Sleep well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thank you.